Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Biola Labi.
Welcome, I'm Veronica Odeka. Time now for the week that was. Let's take a look at the top trending stories that made headlines around the globe this week.
President Muhammad Buhari stated earlier this week that his administration will continue to place the nation's security and national interest above the rule of law. Buhari made the declaration while flagging off the 2018 Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, in Abuja. He also stated that his government adopted the stance on the basis of subsisting decisions of the Supreme Court. So this was something that took over the headlines this week. The annual NBA conference. Usually it opens up with a big speech, and during that speech, one of the things that the president said was to, because of this whole fight of corruption, that lawyers should basically not the rule of law should not be above national security, which a lot of the lawyers were very upset because for them that is what they live by, which is like the rule of law. And so there's been a lot of backlash on this issue, and I think a lot of it stems from the fact that the court systems have been very frustrating in bringing people to justice when it comes to the corruption charges. So a lot of people that have been, so that's why you keep on hearing someone has been arrested, money's been found in a house, something has happened, but then there's nothing that follows up. And so now it's sort of saying that anything that threatens national security should be above the rule of law. And so there's been a lot of back and forth, but I think that the last couple of days there's been another statement put out by the president saying, of course his administration respects the rule of law.
But still
national security
is above.
So I think this is going to, I think these are just some of the things that happens with this president. So, I think for him, he's frustrated, but then the lawyers also have their own credos. So I think that, for me, I'm always about rule of law, and I think this is what our democracy is. It's a cornerstone of our democracy. So we shall see what happens there. British Prime Minister Theresa May touched down in Cape Town on Tuesday as she kicked off a tour of the African continent to lay foundation for a post-Brexit trade deal. Her tour of South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya says May's first to the continent, actually, since becoming premier in 2016. She first visited Nigeria before moving on to Kenya. While in Nigeria, she promised Britain's increased military support to Nigeria in order to help tackle the rising wave of insecurity. She also announced a new UK and French project that will help Nigeria and Niger Republic strengthen their borders to crack down on human trafficking. The two leaders also signed a trade agreement setting up an economic development forum as a key. So, this was part of her outreach to the African continent. She did South Africa, Kenya and Nigeria. I think she's done Nigeria, now Kenya, and now off to South Africa. So there's been a lot of stuff actually in the social media space about this visit, which is that Theresa May is in Africa for a very specific reason. She needs to make sure that post-Brexit trade relations
these are supportive of what you're doing.
But of course, England has fallen behind in the amount of trade it does with Africa over the last few decades, even though there's the colonial past and the colonial history. So people have been saying that now that the West has a plan for Africa, does Africa have a plan for the West? And what is our strategy in actually approaching them? But I think people feel like a little bit of that ship has sailed because Africa is looking east to China, and that I think most of these leaders are going to China very soon for the annual China-Africa conference. So people feel like, good job, Theresa May, but it's
Do you think it's a little too late?
Yeah, people feel that way. But at the end of the day...
But I will applaud the fact that she's at least making an effort.
You have to,
and trying to put some things into place. So, and I'm glad that she actually came to Nigeria respectfully, and so.
And did you? From a fashion perspective,
I did.
What did you think of the jacket?
I thought it was nice. I thought it was nice that she was wearing Emmy pads.
That didn't work. She was wearing a Nigerian-made is it Ashoke jacket?
It looked like.
From a
I don't think it was Ashoke, but it looked like,
it was Nigerian-made fabric by a Nigerian designer. And so she wore it for most of her trip.
She did.
Here in Nigeria.
It was very impressive, and kudos to the designer.
Would you have picked that jacket for her if you were styling?
I don't know. I don't know what the other options were.
Okay.
You know, but it was a nice jacket, and it did look nice on her. And kudos to the designer, Emmy Casbett, who
what's his name?
Emmy Casbett.
Emmy Casbett.
You know, who was able to get her into that jacket. So
and she looked very stylish.
Yeah, she did, you know. It was nice.
And a pop of color.
It did, you know, it was really nice, yeah.
Still on visits to Africa, German Chancellor Angela Merkel met with President Muhammadu Buhari as she concluded her West African tour, which earlier took her to Senegal and Ghana. During her meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari in the capital Abuja, she discussed ways to strengthen economic cooperation between the two countries, including how to improve regulatory conditions for foreign investors to Nigeria. So this was one of those things where, once again,
one another,
which is why there's this whole thing like, okay, you're being quoted by Theresa May, you're being quoted by Angela Merkel. What is your plan, and what is your plan to them? And sort of almost like people are coming, but
what's the?
Do we have a strategy? But Angela Merkel is someone that, I mean, Germany is a place that I'm sure Africa wants to do more business with. There's quite a lot of investment, but once again, I think China might have overtaken trade in Africa. And Europe now is realizing that they've been left behind. I mean, Africa's strongest trading partners are the U.S. and China. And so I think the EU will struggle, but they have to get in there.
Yeah. So, like, once again, it is a good start. You know, conversation is necessary for change. So at least they're making the, you know, the right steps, and we'll see where it goes if we're ready to even further strengthen ties. If it favors us, I'm sure. Why not?
I mean, I think that there's quite a lot to learn from Germany. Germany has very good apprenticeship programs, especially around manufacturing, and that's an area that we talked about last week. That the federal government and CBN is trying to improve investment rates for people investing in manufacturing. So let's see.
Well, that'll be a good
Fingers crossed. All right. The president of the Nigerian Senate, Bukola Saraki, on Thursday declared to run for the office of the president of Nigeria just 24 hours after Senate colleague Rabiu Kwankwanso also declared to run for the same office at an elaborate rally in downtown Abuja. Mr. Saraki made his declaration at a public dialogue organized by the Not Too Young to Run movement, a youth-based group that successfully lobbied for the passage of new law that reduced the age of qualification for political office across the country. Leaders of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, were invited as part of the series on Thursday, with Saraki being asked to deliver the keynote. But the shocking aspect of the appearance came when the Senate president declared his intention to run for president. He promised to lead the fight against poverty and employ every God-given resource available in turning things around. So this was the week that was when it came to declaring. Everyone, and then also everyone went to pick up their registration.
PVC.
No, their registration forms for registering to be president.
Okay, yes.
So Atiku picked up his, which I was really shocked that he was crying. I mean, there was this picture of him crying when he picked it up.
Why?
Emotional, like he wants to be Nigeria's president, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway.
I think that that's interesting because we do have this new law, like that's come in Not Too Young, to allow younger people to come in and play a part in politics. And you do have people that are, you know, campaigning to, even if not, they're not going to win, but at least letting us know that there is hope and there are young people that want to step up to the plate. So this is quite interesting.
And then yesterday, too, I think one of the, there was also another presidential aspirant that emerged from a coalition of a group of 10 people. And so that's Feladro Otoye that is now the official representative of that coalition. So, I mean, I think that the PDP, it'll be interesting to see who emerges from the PDP primaries, because now the PDP has quite a number of people that have declared their interest, that have picked up their form and registered, and some are doing it in tears. But let's keep going. We've talked about this. Let's go to the next story. Let's go to the next story. No, let's keep going. I think we've talked about this story as well, so we'll keep going. And let's see, I think, this was another big news this week. The Davido goes for his NYSC.
Yes, I did.
Really kind of get that?
I don't know why it was such a big deal. I mean, everyone is required to go for your NYSC, but I think it was a situation where he was saying it's better now as opposed to later on, and obviously because he's a celebrity, people felt like, why are you, going for your NYC? There's no point. But I guess it is a good thing for him to say, let me do it now, as opposed to.
Well, I mean, I think he's delayed it 2 years in a row, so I guess maybe that was what the big deal was. But I'm sure people get to say they served with him.
Yes, I know. They said that, it does cause a stir, that fact that he showed up at camp, and of course he's a celebrity.
But I mean, maybe, once again, this is also nice for people that are serving, just to see that no one is above the law. Everyone is doing their share, and also maybe, get a couple of concerts out of it if you're in camp with him. And the big going away for Aretha Franklin happened this week.
Yes.
Musicians, family and friends, fans said their final goodbye to Aretha Franklin at her funeral yesterday in Detroit. The church choir sang Franklin's Say a Little Prayer and her version of Bridge Over Troubled Waters. As mourners arrived, they filed past and paid their respect at Franklin's open casket, lasting over 7 hours. The memorial was both mournful and celebratory, focusing on Franklin's gospel roots, and the service featured music from Ariana Grande, Jennifer Hudson, and Shaka Khan, with Stevie Wonder delivering an emotional finale. And I know we have a little video of that. Let's take a look.
I used to feel so uninspired, and when I knew I had to face another day, Lord, it made me feel so tired. Before the day I met you, my life was so unkind. You're the key to my peace of mind. And you make me feel, you make me feel, you make me feel like a natural woman. So when my soul was lost and found, you came along to claim it. I didn't know just what's wrong with me, till your kiss helped me name it. Now I'm no longer doubtful of what I'm living for, and if I make you happy to do more, you make me feel, you make me feel, you make me feel like a natural woman. Oh, everything, take it to Jesus, take it to the Lord. Oh, everything, yeah, everything, oh, everything, oh. Take it to Jesus, take it to the Lord.
Oh, I know Ariana Grande.
Yeah, but this video, we don't know. Wow. I mean, that was, I watched some of the celebration and, of course, going away yesterday.
Yeah.
And some of the speeches were so touching, and some of these people that have been friends with her for all their lives.
Yeah.
It was so touching. Smokey Robinson gave a speech. I know Fantasia sang.
Ariana Grande sang. President Clinton spoke. Gosh, Robinson. Even her family, her nieces. So it's interesting to see. I mean, the legacy someone leaves behind with friends, but it's also really important family, people that were close to her, and the fact that she really impacted her family members. Her niece gave like an emotional, moving speech about how her auntie was fundamental in education, and because of her auntie, she went to school, she finished, she went to Howard, her daughter has graduated from Howard, and everyone, they were going to continue the legacy. I was actually moved to tears. So it was really good to see things that she was doing within her family and in her community.
Yes,
without
people from
being
Detroit were very clear that she was always a part of the Detroit community.
Much so.
And I think for me, one of the most touching speeches was also Cicely Tyson giving a speech. Cicely Tyson is 93 years
She is
old.
good, looking good, snatched.
Unbelievable. I think seeing her yesterday also, I mean, was also touching for me on another level. I also went to a funeral yesterday of one of Nigeria's longest-serving lawyers. He was 90.
Well, it's a long
and
time.
his name, his name is Olatunji Gomez. And once again, may his soul rest in peace. But
yes.
it was such a touching ceremony yesterday. And even though he was 90, it almost, I mean, you know, the way people talked about him, the things he did yoga until the last day.
Wow.
He climbed like millions of stairs up and down to his office. And there were so many young lawyers there that, and not so young lawyers, that came to pay tribute because he was 90, and so he saw so many. So I think it's always nice to see people like Cicely Tyson, that's 93, living a healthy life, and people like Mr. Gomez that died at the age of 90. So I think that,
there is a long life ahead.
And then in Washington, people also said goodbye to the late Arizona Senator John McCain, the 6th-term Republican senator who lived and worked in the U.S. Capitol for decades. He was brought from Arizona and laid in state under the Capitol Rotunda. And as friends, family, and former colleagues gathered for his service, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence paid tribute to the former Vietnam War prisoner. I know we have a short video there. Let's take a quick look.
It is deeply humbling to stand before you today at the United States Capitol to commemorate the life and service of an American patriot, Senator John McCain. The President asked me to be here on behalf of a grateful nation to pay a debt of honor and respect to a man who served our country throughout his life, in uniform and in public office. And it's my great honor to be here. His service as a naval aviator took him around the world and eventually to the war in Vietnam. It was there, on his 23rd bombing run, that John was shot down and captured. Refusing early release for the sake of his comrades, he endured 5.5 years of confinement and torture. Then, as now, Americans marveled at the iron will of John McCain. As President Trump said yesterday, we respect his service to the country. In every generation, there are those who put country first, who prize service ahead of self, who summon idealism from a cynical age. John McCain was such a man. Today, he lies in the place where he served to the last, the Congress of the United States. Soon, he will go to rest on the grounds where he served first, the United States Naval Academy. On behalf of a grateful nation, we will ever remember that John McCain served his country, and John McCain served his country honorably. May God bless the memory of John McCain. May God comfort his family.
Wow, very powerful.
Yes, it was moving.
It was one of the things that they said John McCain wanted was to make sure that people knew he was a patriot. And I think that for Americans, his legacy is sealed as a patriot. He served his country for over, I mean, most of his life. I mean, from the age of 22 when he was in the Army till, I mean, in the Navy till the day he died, he was serving his country. He was in the House, he was in the Senate, he ran for president.
He did.
And I mean, I think what really was amazing about him, that he was really clear in his mind that he didn't want President Trump at his funeral. And so having Mike Pence there and reading a quote from President Trump, I wonder if if that's sort of how they got around that. I think him and Mike Pence had served before, so he did respect Mike Pence.
Which is interesting that he didn't want him there, because he was a senator and he was one man that was very diplomatic across party lines. He didn't favor one without the other. He stood up for what was right, condemned what was wrong within his party, and even if it was the opposing party. So that says a lot. But like you said, he was someone who was highly respected by his colleagues as well as the nation as a whole, and you know, everyone's sad about his passing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, but as someone that served this country, it's a very good example, especially today when people are getting so disillusioned with politics, not only in Nigeria but globally. I'm sure this is a very good example to Americans and people that have served, that want to serve their country. And may his soul rest in peace.
That is true.
That's all the stories that made headlines from around the, well, not all of them, but that is the ones we're talking about today. It's time now for a short break, but stay with us. When we return, we'll be joined in the studio by Camille Olufowobi, founder and CEO of the most influential people of African descent, MEPAD, an organization that showcases and celebrates Africans and people of African descent on the continent and from around the world. Stay tuned.